"You're too distracting for our patients." Those words rang in Emily Carter's ears like a slap to the face. She had just finished a double shift, wiping tears from the eyes of a grieving widow, when she was called into the administrator's office. What followed was a meeting she'd never forget. In just 10 minutes, she went from a respected nurse to an employee being escorted out. Not because of a mistake, not because of a complaint, but because of how she looked. That day, everything she believed about fairness, professionalism, and dedication was turned upside down. Emily Carter was 27 years old and worked at St. Mary's Hospital in Dallas, Texas. From the moment she walked into a patient's room, there was a warmth about her that couldn't be taught. Patients asked for her by name. Families trusted her in their most vulnerable moments, and fellow nurses admired her dedication. But there was one thing about Emily that always seemed to draw attention: her looks. Tall, with naturally auburn hair, and a figure that some called too curvy for comfort, Emily never tried to stand out. She wore the same standard issue scrubs as everyone else. She tied her hair back. She followed every dress code to the letter. Yet behind her back, whispers grew louder. People didn't see the years of study, the overnight shifts, or the long hours standing in emergency rooms. They saw a woman they believed didn't fit their mold. But Emily had always believed that her work would speak louder than appearances, that compassion and skill would matter more than body type, that the hospital would recognize her value. She wasn't prepared for what would happen next. On the morning of May 28, 2025, Emily arrived early for her shift like she always did. She checked charts, greeted patients, and helped a new hire with her rounds. Then a message came through. HR wanted to see her. Confused but not alarmed, she walked into the office where the human resources manager and hospital administrator were waiting. Their eyes didn't meet hers. The HR rep handed her a letter. "We've received complaints," he said, "about your appearance." Emily blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. "I'm wearing scrubs," she replied, "the same as everyone else." But the administrator shook his head. "You've caused discomfort to staff, to patients." Her heart sank. "So I'm being fired for my body?" she asked quietly. No one answered. She stood there numb, while they explained that it was about maintaining a professional environment, that they couldn't take any risks, that she was just too distracting. Emily packed her things in silence. As she walked out of the hospital she'd worked in for years, heads turned. Not one person came forward. She drove home in tears. For the first time in her life, she wasn't ashamed of her body, but of the world that judged her for it. That night, she sat in her apartment, replaying the day over and over, until finally she picked up her phone and called the one person who always stood up for her, her older brother, Captain James Carter. James Carter had just returned from a year-long deployment overseas. He was a decorated officer in the U.S. Army, known for his discipline, bravery, and a fierce loyalty to his family. When he saw Emily's name on the caller ID, he answered immediately. Her voice was quiet. "I didn't want to bother you," she said, "but I got fired today." James was silent for a moment. Then calmly, "What happened?" Emily hesitated. Then the words poured out. The meeting, the letter, the reason. "They said I was a distraction." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then James spoke slowly and with a rising edge in his voice. "They fired you because of how you look?" "Yes," she whispered. His jaw clenched. Emily could hear it in his tone. The soldier in him had just been activated. "You didn't deserve that," he said, "and I'm going to make it right." The next morning, Captain James Carter put on his full Army dress uniform. Medals polished, shoes shined, his posture upright and commanding. He drove to St. Mary's Hospital, walked through the front doors, and stood tall at the reception desk. "I need to speak with the administrator," he said. Patients and staff turned to look. Some recognized him from local news reports. Within minutes, James was led into a conference room where the HR manager and administrator sat nervously. "Captain Carter," the administrator began, "how can we help you?" James didn't sit. "I'm here about my sister, Nurse Emily Carter. I understand she was fired due to her appearance." The HR manager cleared his throat. "Captain, we have policies to maintain professionalism." James cut him off, voice low but firm. "Professionalism?" Emily worked night shifts, comforted dying patients, and trained your new hires, and you terminated her for being distracting? The room fell silent. James took a step forward. In the United States Army, we don't judge people by how they look. We judge them by their actions, their courage, their character. If you think a nurse's body is more important than her heart and skills, then it's not Emily who's unprofessional. It's you. He paused. You can either fix this quietly, or I'll make sure the world hears what you did. They didn't respond, but by then, the damage had already begun. That same afternoon, James posted a photo of Emily in her scrubs, smiling warmly, with a caption that told the world what had happened. My sister was fired today, not for incompetence, not for misconduct, but for being too attractive. Within hours, the post exploded. Thousands of comments, tens of thousands of shares. Women around the world shared their own experiences, being told to cover up, to tone it down, to hide who they were to make others comfortable. Advocacy groups reposted the story. News outlets picked it up. Headlines read, "Nurse fired for her appearance. Army Brothers post breaks the internet." Emily and James were invited to speak on national television. They didn't bash the hospital. Instead, they talked about something bigger. How we reduce women to their looks, even in the most noble of professions. The comments flooded in. She's brave. He's a hero. This needs to change. What started as one act of injustice had now sparked a national conversation. St. Mary's Hospital, overwhelmed by public outrage, issued a formal apology within 3 days. They claimed the situation had been misinterpreted and promised to review internal policies, conduct retraining, and reaffirm their commitment to equality. But for many, it was too little, too late. The damage to their reputation was already done. The public had taken a side, and they stood with Emily. No policy statement could undo what had been revealed. A system that punished women not for their work, but for their appearance. James didn't respond publicly. He didn't need to. The world already had. Just a week after the story went viral, Emily received a call from the Houston Wellness Medical Center, one of the most inclusive and top-rated facilities in the state. They told her they had seen her story and were impressed by how she handled everything with dignity. "We'd be honored to have you," the voice on the phone said. Emily accepted. On her first day, she was greeted with warm smiles, not judgment. Her colleagues didn't whisper. Her patients didn't stare. She wasn't a distraction. She was a nurse, a healer, a human being. She walked the hallways with her head held high. The place felt like a second home. She found herself smiling again, laughing again, and most importantly, being seen for who she truly was. Not for her curves, not for her face, but for her heart, for her soul, for her strength. Emily didn't seek revenge. She didn't want anyone fired or humiliated. All she wanted was to be treated with respect, to be judged on the things that matter, her skill, her compassion, her integrity. And thanks to her brother's courage and the voices of thousands who stood behind her, she got just that. Captain James Carter reminded us all what it means to protect and serve, not just in war, but in everyday battles for justice. This wasn't just about one nurse. It was about the countless women who've been told to hide who they are to make others comfortable. It was about standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be silent in the face of quiet discrimination. Emily's story is a reminder that we are more than what we look like. That character will always outshine appearances, and that sometimes one voice is enough to change everything. If Emily's story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. And if you stand with Emily, drop your respect over looks in the comments below.